Hi, welcome to the Say Yes Experience podcast. I'm your host, Jessica Rector, and as always, I am so glad you are here. Now, if you're not familiar with my work, I am the leading authority in burnout, and we help people enhance their mental health. So we have anywhere from Fortune 100 companies to small little mom and pop shops that bring us in to do consulting, training, and speaking at their events. And so one of the things we're going to talk about today is really how to enhance your mental health. There's so much negativity going on in the world and in the workplace. We want to make sure that your mental health is not just intact, but that it is thriving. So if you tuned in recently to my previous podcast, I shared with you how to keep positive in such a negative world. Well, we're going to piggyback on that, and I'm going to share with you how I have taught and helped thousands of individuals and teams turn those negative thoughts into positive action, bigger outcomes, and better results. So I'm going to help you do that here today by sharing with you my 5-step proprietary process. Now, I'm going to back up just a little bit because I want to give you the background on how this actually came about. So when I was pregnant with my now 11-year-old son, Blaze, I was very distraught. So I ended up breaking up with my boyfriend 3 days before I found out I was pregnant. Surprise! So there was no social media postings or happy gender revealing parties. When I told my boyfriend the news, he said, well, you got what you wanted, a baby and no guy. And I thought, why, yes, that's every girl's dream. It was not my dream or my plan or my desire. I always thought I'd get married and then have kids. And he said, well, if I can't have you, I don't want the baby. So there I was, alone, pregnant, and scared. And throughout my pregnancy, I had thoughts of, oh, why is it so hard? Or I have to do it all alone. And I did have family and a couple of friends who knew about my pregnancy that were a great support, but feeling like I didn't have a partner who supported me and who was there with me throughout was really disappointing. In fact, I was extremely disappointed in myself. I had great big plans for my life, and being a single mom was not one of them. And so throughout my pregnancy, not just the physical changes that I was enduring, but it was very emotional and a lot of things that impacted my mental health. I had, like I mentioned, really big plans for my life, really ambitious and driven. And having a baby interrupted or really disrupted that plan. And I didn't know what life was then going to look like. My career was going to look like on the other side of that. I'd worked really hard up until that point to create a career and to figure out what I wanted to do in life. And this baby messed that up, right? Really whacked that up. And so there I was in the middle of pregnancy, hiding it from people, didn't want to go out, wore these long flowy dresses so people couldn't see I was pregnant. And even when I'd go to places like the grocery store, I wouldn't look people in the eye because I was scared that they were going to see the secret I was trying desperately to hide. And then Blaze was born. And everything changed. I remember Blaze was a few months old and I was at this like little networking event and someone had found out that I had had a baby and she said, why don't you ever post about it on social media? Like, why do we never see anything about it or about your baby? And that got me thinking. She said, you really need to post about it because people like you. They want to know what you're up to. They want to see that joy. And I was like, really? They do? They're not going to judge me? They're not going to think different of me? Now, I didn't judge single moms at that point. My sister was a single mom. I looked up to them and I thought they were strong. But has that ever happened to you when you look at someone else and think one thing, but then inside yourself, you feel completely something else? I felt disappointed and let down and distraught because because of my situation. And because I didn't now have a plan on what was going to happen or where I was going. And so throughout my pregnancy, I had spent so much time in that negativity, and I can't believe this is happening to me. My world just blew up. I have no plan on being a parent. I have no idea how to do that. Like, all these negative thoughts started really overtaking my life. And then, then I was holding this baby, and I was really just trying to keep my head above water for so long, just trying to figure things out, just trying to figure out feeding him and changing him, and poop explosions that like were just drastic and traumatic for me. And it sounds so funny looking back, but as a new mom who didn't expect to be a mom in that way, and doing it alone and by myself, like really navigating and figuring things out, and not having any idea what my career was going to look like. And then when that colleague said that to me, it was a wake-up call. It was like, oh, really? Oh, okay. I never thought to do that. I didn't know that people would embrace me and be compassionate and understanding. And I started doing that, and things changed, because when people were compassionate and they were excited, they wanted to see my baby, and I wanted to show him off, and people were excited to meet him. I then started thinking, okay, why was I in such despair? And I realized that I had been engulfed in shame throughout my pregnancy without even recognizing it. I was swimming in it every single day. And the more I was swimming in it, the more those negative thoughts started taking over my life, that the more they became my norm. And that's how I started showing up in life. And because of that, I started taking a deep dive into why these negative thoughts showed up, how they showed up, where they came from. And I started doing the work around them to really eradicate them in my life and to change my life. And through the process, I created a 5-step proprietary framework that I'm going to share with you today. And I've taught to thousands and thousands of people, in hopes that it helps you, whatever you're going through, wherever you are in life, that challenge, that issue, that struggle. Because, my friend, we all have struggles. We all have struggles. And the difference is how we choose to respond, or how we react. And I reacted to mine. And my hope is to help you better respond to no matter whatever it is that you're going through. So here's the 5-step process. It starts with identifying those negative thoughts that are coming up. So again, we all have the negative thoughts. Maybe you feel like you don't have enough experience, or that you're not good enough, or you're not going to be the best leader. You don't have leadership skills. You don't know how to do something, or you tell yourself you don't have the time. You don't have the know-how. You're not meant for that. There's no way it's going to work. No one's going to want to hire you. Why am I going to apply for that job anyways? Your team is toxic. And so you think, well, I might as well just be part of that. I might as well be negative too. So what are all those things coming up for you? So every time you think negative, all those that came up, immediately you had them. I can't do that. I don't have enough time. There's no way that's going to work. I don't have the know-how. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I'm not pretty enough, young enough, brave enough, courageous enough, a big enough or strong enough leader. All those things that come up, I want you to write them all down. That's step 2. First one is identify the negative thoughts. And here's a hint. We all have negative thoughts. Every single person has negative thoughts. It's a commonality among all of us humans that we have negative thoughts, right? So that's the first step. Second step is to write down your negative thoughts. You can't change things you're not aware exist. So the more aware you are of your negative thoughts, the better chance you can actually change them. You can actually track your negative thoughts throughout your day within a week. And something magic happens when you start tracking them and writing them down. You'll say, oh, this one's coming up a lot. I feel like I'm not smart enough a lot. I mean, maybe you get lost or you're running late and you say to yourself, if I was just smarter, I would know how to get here. Or if I was smarter, I would have left 10 minutes faster. So I'm not smart enough keeps coming up for you. And again, it plays out in different scenarios, but if you peel back the layers of all those scenarios, it comes down to you saying to yourself, you're not smart enough. In fact, how that transitions over time is you say, I'm dumb. I'm not as smart as Jim. I'm not as smart as Susie. And that's you feeling that you're not smart enough. So write down those negative thoughts. And again, you can track them. And you'll find that they come back to a few. And if it comes back to different ones, you can also go through this process with every single negative thought you have. So the second one is to write down those negative thoughts. The third one is then to write down your triggers. What are your triggers for the negative thoughts coming up? So it can be a place, a situation, a mood, experience. And if you've ever had a phone call with a person and got off the call and said, why do I even bother? You know it can also be a person. So sometimes a trigger is a person. A lot of times a trigger is a person. If you're around a toxic Tim, a negative Nancy, a burned out Betty, they tend to be negative. And then you leave that situation and it's easy for you then to be negative. Why do I even bother? I knew Nancy was going to be like this, or I can't believe Tim said that, or Betty thinks what? I mean, who does she think she is? So then you start to be negative as well. So the third one is the triggers. Write down your triggers. Because when you know your triggers, you can become more proactive with that. So those negative thoughts don't start coming into play after you encounter that trigger. So the fourth step is to reframe it. So here's a great thing about reframing. You can say the opposite. So for instance, if your negative thought was, I'm not a good enough leader, you can then reframe it and say, I'm an awesome leader. I'm an amazing leader. That's a sentence, right? You can say, I'm a rock star leader, or my team thinks I'm a great leader. You can also ask questions because there's power in questions. Your brain's designed to answer questions. So when a question comes up, your brain will come up with answers. So you can reframe it in the form of a question. So you can say, what courses do I need to take in order to become a better leader? What classes do I need to enroll in to get those leadership skills? Who can I ask for help to become a better leader, or who might be willing to mentor me into becoming a more empathetic or a more skilled leader? You can ask questions. And even if you think you don't know the answer, you'd be surprised what comes to mind. So you may say, well, I don't know. I don't know what books I need to read to be a better leader. And then your brain will say, well, you can post it on Facebook, or you can look up best book reviews on Amazon or Google, best leadership books, and you'll come up with all kinds of answers. So that's the fourth one, to reframe it. Because here's the thing, your brain's constantly talking to you. What part of your brain are you listening to? You can say, I'm a horrible leader, and your brain's going to validate that. Your brain is going to say, yes, you don't have a great background for leadership. You lack leadership experience. Another way your brain will validate it, it'll say, your team doesn't really like you, they tolerate you. Or it may say, well, your kids don't even listen to you. And you may say, well, what does that have to do with leadership? Well, your brain connects seemingly unrelated dots. So it'll say, well, in order to take a shower last night, you had to ask your kids 3 times to do it. So that's bad parenting, which means bad leadership, right? Our brain connects dots that don't even seem like they're related. And then we go, how did we even come up with that? That may also take the form with you have a friend who says something and you're like, what? That doesn't even have anything to do with what we're talking about. Their brain connects unrelated things all the time. That's how our brains work. But if you say and listen to that positive part of your brain that says, I'm an awesome leader, I'm a fantastic leader, your brain's going to validate those things as well. It'll say, yes, you have incredible background for leadership. Now, keep in mind, this is if nothing changes. The only thing that changes is what part of your brain you're listening to. Everything else will change as well. It'll say, your background is made for leadership. You have impeccable leadership experience, and it'll start listing the different places where you've been a leader. Your team loves you. Look at all the things that they do. Look how long they've been working for your company. Look at the interactions they have and how engaged they are. And your kids listen to you because in order to take a shower last night, you had to ask them only 3 times to do it. Yay! Awesome parenting means awesome leadership. So what part of your brain are you listening to? The positive side or the negative side? Because whichever side you listen to will then dictate your behaviors, actions, and results that follow. So if you listen to the negative side that says you're not a great leader, you're not going to apply for that leadership position, or you're not going to go out for that promotion, or you're not going to step up when a new leadership role is offered because you're thinking that you're not that great of a leader anyway. So why am I even going to bother? But if you listen to the positive side of your brain that says you're an awesome leader and it validates that, you're going to say, of course I'm going out for that leadership position because I'm going to get it. I'm going to apply for that promotion because I have just as good of a chance of getting it as someone else. Yes, yes, yes. Which then changes your behaviors, actions, and results and allows you to create success out of it, which is step 5, the action that you're going to take. So step 1 is to identify the negative thought. Step 2 is to write it down. 3 is to identify your triggers. 4 is to reframe. And step 5 is what action are you going to take? So when you reframe it and start listening to the positive part of your brain, you're going to take an action from that. And that forward action, that micro step, that small, mini, manageable step is helping you create forward progress to create more success in your life. So reframe it and you're going to create more success. Now, I've taught this to, again, thousands of people, but I first learned it myself and I first did it for myself. And it's not just about my creating financial success from it, which I have, but it's also about creating emotional success, relationship accept, mental success, creating more joy, more fulfillment, more happiness, that feel good success. So those small, mini, micro steps forward are going to create success in every area of your life. Why? Because you're choosing the positive over the negative. It's easy to stay in the negative, again, because 80% of your thoughts are negative. So that's your core, that is your go-to. So we have to rewire and retrain your brain to look for and think of the positive. And then your behaviors, actions, and results change as well, creating more success, more happiness, and more joy. So how are you going to start implementing this today? First of all, just be mindful of the negative thoughts that are starting to come up. And every time you're like, oh, that's a negative, you write it down and keep track of those. And the cool thing that happens is the more you do it, the better you get at doing it, the more you'll also pick up on it in other people. When someone starts being negative and they start repeating that negativity, you'll say, okay, I'm going to lovingly point something out to you and help you so we can take a step forward for you and you can create more success. So then you'll start teaching other people how to do it. You'll start identifying it easier in other people. Now, the challenge is you also won't want to be around those people much longer because those people pull you down and you're on a different path in a different way and you're changing the negative into positivity, bigger actions, and better results. I can't wait. I can't wait to see how this starts showing up and impacting and affecting your life in such a big manner. I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.